The next speaker is David Brenig-Jones from Integrated Transport Planning, the UK.
So, my name is David Brenig-Jones, and I'm going to be talking to you about how public transport can support Kyiv to be a prosperous and green city. So, I'm from Integrated Transport Planning. This is a public transport consultancy based in the UK. We've been working in Ukraine since 2015, originally on the Sustainable Urban Transport Project for Kyiv, which we worked with the World Bank and A+S. At the moment, we're working here on a feasibility study for a new rapid transit system, which would link Treshna with the right back in Kyiv. So, you don't need someone from London to come here to tell you Kyiv has a congestion problem. And the cause of congestion is too many cars on the roads. And no matter how many roads you build, this will still be a problem because the junctions themselves will never be big enough. You cannot build junctions big enough to transfer the cars. However, there is a way out of this. And I see this solution being quality public transport. So for Kyiv to be an efficient, economically dynamic and fast city, we need to move more people through these streets than currently do. And this is a really simple picture that shows how much road space it takes to carry 80 people. 80 people in cars on the right takes up the whole width and breadth of this road, and 80 people on the bus on the left takes up much smaller space. So if we're going to put more people through these streets as the city grows, we're going to need to be more efficient with our road space. And there's also an important point here that walking and cycling is a really big part of this story. So what is public transport? What is quality public transport? Well, you have to feel good doing it. Just like when you see an advert for a new car on the telly, it says, if you buy this car, you're going to feel great. We need to do that with public transport as well. It needs to be fast and reliable. It needs to be comfortable and safe. It needs to be affordable and secure. And importantly, it needs to be financially sustainable. And that's for the municipal operator and for the private operators. Even more important is it needs to be low CO2 emissions or zero CO2 emissions. And that's because we know the scientists at UN say we need to be carbon neutral by 2045 to avoid catastrophic climate breakdown. So, we're at a Smart Cities conference. So you'll be pleased to know that data is really essential to all of this. We need data to understand the passengers. The passengers are the customers. We need data to understand the product, which is the supply, the public transport routes, and also the operational constraints they operate under. We analyze this data to optimize the network, to predict future changes, and also to make sound business decisions. You'll see the map on the right is a culmination of many surveys conducted over many months in Kyiv. It's a passenger flow map of the passengers traveling on ground transport over the course of a day, where the thicker the line, the greater number of passengers. It's really helpful for us to be able to understand and interrogate the network in this way. Other pieces of data that we need to know about the routes. We need to know where the routes are going today. Easy Way do a really good job of collecting information on this. We also need to know about the urban structure of the city. So this is where do people live, where are the jobs, where are the schools, and where are the hospitals. We also need to know where do passengers want to go to and from. And we can do this by surveying them, asking them on the street, or going around people's houses and doing household surveys, or we can also use mobile phone data. Another part of the data need is knowing the patronage on the routes. This is where we can use sensors on board buses to count passengers on and off. We can also use ticket data, or we can count them manually. So all these pieces of data come together, and we perform a large number of analyses. We analyze the operational efficiency of routes. We analyze the operational efficiency of modes and companies. We identify where are the congestion hotspots. We look into what passengers want and what they don't want through focus groups. This slide here is just one piece of analysis of many that we do. So this visualization shows the accessibility in terms of how far you can travel from a particular location. The green is how far you can travel within 45 minutes using public transport. So the map on the left is Oberlin, the center of Oberlin, and it shows it's quite well connected to the rest of the city and the city center. Treshnia, on the other hand, we all know there's problems in terms of travel time from Treshnia, so it's no surprise, but it's good to visualize it on the map. And here you can see very slow travel times between Treshnia and the city center. This has implications for the residents who live there. People can't access as many jobs. There's problems accessing higher education and problems accessing healthcare. So the way transport is arranged has real implications on people's lives. So we need to make improvements. Kyiv is in a great position. There is lots of public transport. There is actually a high mode share at the moment. So we need to lock this in and build on it, make this better. And there's 4 ways we do this, and we have to do all these things together. We need to improve the routes, because the current arrangement of routes in the city isn't as efficient as it could be. We need to upgrade the infrastructure. This is the interchange points, and also this is having dedicated lanes for public transport on the streets. We need to improve the quality of the vehicles. Not just the municipal operators, but also the private operators, the marshrutkas, need to improve as well. And in order to do that, we actually have to help those operators to become more profitable, more successful, so they can reinvest in vehicles. The way you do that is through increasing government regulation. So the government has more power to regulate the network and reduce competition where necessary, and that actually helps the operators be more successful. That's why reform in government and at the operators is the center of all of this. Some of the recommendations included the development of dedicated lanes for public transport. Because if we want to see these streets carry more passengers, we're going to have to allow buses to bypass cars. So this is a political problem now. Are we willing to see road space transferred from the car to the public passenger? Even if that will annoy some people, but it could be for the better good of the whole city. We also need pedestrian improvements, as anyone who walks to the bus or the tram has to walk there, tram extensions and interchange improvements. So in our study, we developed a roadmap for implementation. In the short and medium term, we saw the introduction of 19 new routes, and some of these are here already. We also saw 46 routes modified and over 100 routes removed. That's because there is actually an over-competition on the streets for passengers, which is bad for operators and passengers. We modeled the effects in the short and medium term of this, and we see operating costs reduce by 14%, so it's good for operators. It's good for passengers because they have to interchange less, and it's good for the environment and local air pollution because we get to reduce CO2 emissions and local air pollutants. And greater reductions could be gained with a shift to greener vehicles. In the longer term, we identified new mass transit network, well, additional mass transit lines, which could support the existing metro lines. So we identified 8 of these, which we think would have really good passengers. These could be developed either as rapid tram, BRT, or metro, but of course, cost and speed of implementation are important here. And at the moment, we are working with the World Bank now on a feasibility study to develop one of these lines, which is the green line from Treshnia over to the right bank. So, I hope my quite quick presentation there helped explain how I see public transport as being a really essential part of Kyiv's future to enable it to be prosperous and green. That data is really important to enable this realization, but also that there's some quite tough political decisions that need to be made to help this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really surprised you were doing this project for Odessa, because now I live in Odessa and there are huge problems in transport there. So I'm curious to see how your model was developed and whether it was implemented in Odessa?
In Odessa, I'll do another presentation on that tomorrow. No.
Not now.
Yeah, we had some good relationships with the government, definitely there. I don't know where they're at, but
Please send me the modeling.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.